My name is Chris Joint. I'm from Security AI, an AWS partner, and I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about how leveraging graph insights can help you turbocharge your deployment of Amazon Q for Business. Now, we all know, of course, AI is disrupting everything. It's disrupting how work is done, how we build value, how we deliver value. I think a lot of us would agree, if we've been in the IT sector for a while, we've probably never seen anything like this before, right? More hype, more capability, more everything happening kind of all at once. I also do think it's fair to say, however, that the kind of ability to capture value is still catching up to what models can do and what AI can do these days, right? And that's one of the reasons why Amazon Q is such an effective solution, right? It's kind of built to very easily help you, sit on top of your data and deliver value to your users. And it's also secure and private by design, which is important because one of the things that's a major roadblock for a lot of organizations that want to roll out AI is concerns about data security. That's the number one roadblock for anybody trying to roll out AI. So Amazon Q is secure and private by design to help alleviate that, right? And what it'll do is it'll respect identities and roles and permissions, ensuring that personalized interactions are based on the user's actual data access that they have, right? So Amazon Q does respect permissions, and it also offers data privacy in the sense that Amazon is not taking your data and using it to improve their models or storing it anywhere, right? Your data stays private. And Amazon Q, however, makes it very, very easy to search data, right? The speed and power and scale of AI, it's just different than a human user going somewhere and kind of search and destroy method, going to different data sources and trying to query them. When you have AI that can crawl deeply through your data on a very granular level, and do it at every query. What'll happen? It'll surface whatever it finds, right? So it's sort of a double-edged sword where you can very easily, if you don't have things tightly controlled, you can very easily have unintended data exposure, right? So you could have an employee say, I want salary information for employees in the US, or what companies are we evaluating for M&A, or could I get social security numbers for our employees, right? If you don't have your underlying data structure properly permissioned and knowledge of where all of your sensitive data is and all of your policies in order, you could very easily expose that with the speed and power that AI gives to any user, right? The problem with that, however, is data estates are incredibly complex, right? Especially when we're talking about getting down to the file level where we need to have intelligence and we need to have control, right, at a deep file level. We're not talking about securing AI by securing a data system. We're talking about we need to have intelligence at the file level. And that's incredibly complex, right? When we look at the size of a data state, it could be tens or hundreds of billions of files, hundreds of millions of tables, thousands of streams, and petabytes upon petabytes of data. We actually have one large enterprise customer that generates just in logs in a given day, unstructured, multi-structured logs in one day, more than a petabyte of data, right? So it's just absolutely absurd, numbers there. And you have different file types, different sensitivity levels of different data, different types of sensitive data, different regulations that data might be beholden to, permission structures, policies. It's very complex, right? So what we do and how we help is we actually take your data, right, and kind of scan through it on a deeply granular level, right, and extract from the file level thousands of pieces of metadata that we can then associate back in a graph that will kind of show you all of the connections between things in your data, right? So you see connections between users and groups and permissions and policies and data. You'll see the geographies and the regulations that they're beholden to, kind of all visualized in a graph that makes it very, very easy to see where there might be issues, right? So this allows us to sort of give you a deep level of intelligence. It gives you sensitive data protection, right? And a policy enforcement layer, so you can write policy against that data. It gives you a very granular data access intelligence that helps you to identify any over-permissioning that might be problematic, or where you have permissioning issues that might not be in line with regulations, right? And it also gives you the ability to remediate any of those issues and make your underlying data safe for the usage with AI, right? And we'll do this across all of your data sources, right? Not just data in AWS, but data across your entire environment, right? So this is what we do. We kind of build this graph structure for you and kind of auto-populate this graph from the metadata that we're able to extract from the file level of your data. Okay? And then what we'll also do is we can, via API, push out policy recommendations and things of that nature to external systems and apps. So if you wanted to connect with, say, like a CNAP or a SOC for security purposes, or use that data command API, I'll show you a way that we can use that with AI as well. So how do we work with Amazon Q, right? We're sort of a parallel companion solution for Amazon Q, right? Where what Amazon Q is going to do is it's going to index data from your data systems, and like I said before, respect the permissioning and everything that you have in that data. It's going to respect the labels and the policies on how to deal with data given those labels, right? So what security is going to do is we're going to do the classification and the labeling. We're going to enforce least privileged data access. We're going to reduce data exposures, and also removal of old, redundant, obsolete, or trivial data that could be causing security issues, or reducing the quality of AI outputs, right? So what we'll do is we'll kind of inspect those data systems, show you insights in our graph, and then push remediations back into those data systems so that Amazon Q can then safely index that data for business usage, okay? So let's go into some of those in detail, right? So I said we're going to do data classification and labeling first. That's kind of the most important piece. At that file level, we have more than 400 classifiers that will classify different types of sensitive data, and then give you the policy engine to label that data as you wish. So you could say something like, for executives only, right? Or something like that gives Amazon Q the information that it needs to properly handle that data, right? After we do classification and labeling, then we can talk about removal of rot data or stale data. This is actually a bigger thing than you might think. So rot data can destroy trust and accuracy, right? So with duplicate fields, copies of files all over the place, AI might not know. That's going to confuse AI. It's going to throw off your results, right? It also gives you kind of a poor employee experience, right? And we know that if people are very brutal when it comes to whether they trust AI and they're going to adopt it or not. If they don't get the answer they're looking for after 2 or 3 times, or they get some junk, they're very quick to write off AI and kind of move on to another one. So it has a big impact on adoption. But also, there can be security issues that are caused by this kind of redundant and stale data. Copies of things all over the place might have different security settings, might have different access privileges, and create kind of a loophole that you need to clean up, right? So one of the things that we'll do is we'll identify and remove redundant data. This alone can have a huge ROI that can fund your whole project to begin with, just the removal of stale data. Next, we'll talk about preventing inappropriate data access, right? So this shift from structured to unstructured data, we have to now govern things like emails, documents, chats, things of that nature. It's a bit different than the structured data world. And we need granular access intelligence across billions and billions of files, right? And the ability to apply context-aware and conditional attribute-based access controls, right? So here's just a visualization of what we'll show you in the graph, right? You can see a piece of financial data, and the specific policies and the specific permissions, right? That's mapped to it, right? The entitlements that are mapped to it against a certain piece of financial data. You'll see that across your entire data estate, giving you the ability to remediate data access issues and over-permissioning issues that could lead to inappropriate data access via AI, right? And then, okay, so once we have things kind of cleaned up from a data access standpoint, we've done our classification and labeling, we've done rot data removal, then we talk about, what about fresh data coming in? Security can act, the Security Data Command Center can act as sort of the policy engine, right, to validate incoming data before it's indexed by Q. All right, so we can consult the graph via the Data Command Graph API and say, should I index this, yes or no, right? Is this safe based on how this data is classified, what sensitive data might be in there, and what policies we need to apply to it. Should I index this, yes or no? So this is a way that we can kind of, on a continual basis, operationalize the data AI security and keep feeding Amazon Q fresh, safe data. All right. So I just wanted to point out real quick that this layer, this information governance layer, is the foundation of the Gartner AI Trism stack. I'm sorry, it's covered up here by a mysterious white box for some reason, but that's a foundational capability. But this is, kind of very simple four-step process that we've helped a lot of customers through that have gone through this path. First, detect, classify, and label sensitive data per your enterprise policies. Reduce old data usage, rot data usage. And then you can start to layer on least privileged data access, and then scaling usage with fresh data and kind of ongoing data sanitization. Right? So why use security in our graph? To enable the safe adoption of Amazon Q for Business, prevent unintended sharing of data, with intelligent risk detection and automated remediation. Improve the quality of AI response by reducing rot data, and the ability to secure all your data in AI across environments. Okay, so those are kind of three reasons to use security along with Amazon Q for Business. And just wanted to throw it out there. This same process works the same way right alongside Amazon Quick Suite. If any of you are considering Amazon Quick Suite to build AI agent applications. Okay? So feel free to come stop by the booth. We're in 1966, or you can kind of scan the QR code here to request a demo. We've got all kinds of collateral and demos at the booth as well. And I also I can show you, we have another product that goes along with the Data Command Graph, our GenCore AI security solution that will protect data in motion, right? By kind of detecting policy violations across an AI system as data moves across the system without requiring you to influence the behavior of an AI model, kind of protecting it by restricting the flow of data across the system. So we'll be demoing that as well, and I'm excited about that. That should be available soon as the MCP for any of you who are building things in Bedrock and AgentCore. So we'll be showing that at the booth as well. But that's all I had today.